Okay, so I just want to make this video on the whole pad versus stick thing. As somebody who's intermediate at fighting games, like somebody who's been playing fighting games for long enough to like not be like a beginner, but not been playing them long enough to be like going to locals or going to tournaments that often. I want to put my input out there and my experiences with both. So for context, I grew up playing mostly on mouse and keyboard on PC. So that's the control scheme I'm like most used to, that I've been playing a lot and have used for most of my gaming experience. And in 2017 was when I started enjoying fighting games. The first fighting game I liked, it technically counts, but I wouldn't count it. It was a very bad Ubisoft game called For Honor. It was a fighting game, but it wasn't a traditional fighting game in any sense. But it's a lot of the mechanics of it, and for that I used mouse and keyboard, and I always heard about people using a controller, and I just didn't care because mouse and keyboard worked fine for me, and it works in that game very well, to be honest. And then in 2018, I went to Smash, and that's when my fighting game record really started. It was too late for me then. I was a fighting game enjoyer. For Smash, I got a GameCube controller. And that's what I want to say. If you're playing Smash, you want a GameCube controller. A lot of people will say, like, oh, you can use the Pro controller. I don't agree. I just genuinely do not agree. I don't think you should use a Pro controller for Smash. I think the GameCube controller is honestly just better ergonomically and more fun to use, more enjoyable, and just feels better for the game. But, you know, I am biased because that's what I started with. I have tried playing on Pro Controller, and, I mean, I guess, like, the day I got my Switch and my copy of Smash, I'd use the Joy-Cons to play, which wasn't great. So, yeah, I definitely think you want a GameCube controller for Smash. Pretty much no matter what. Unless you're super, super anti-GameCube controller, which is like 3 people on the planet. And those people have already made up their minds, so I know that's probably not going to be you. Next. Which GameCube controller do you get? I have one I got on eBay. That is like a real genuine one. It's old, it's a little fucked up, and I use that pretty much only for Melee on Slippy. For Smash Ultimate, I've been using this controller since I got it in 2018. It is a $20 Hori third-party GameCube controller. I think it's really good. It's modern, has 2 bumpers instead of just 1, and it feels solid enough. The layout is honestly what matters. You don't have the big the big meaty, huge, long travel time shoulder buttons, which some people enjoy, some people hate. I quite enjoy them, but I don't need them. They're not beneficial at all, pretty much. And actually just kind of slow down your shielding by like maybe a frame or 2. So if you care about that sort of thing, yeah. So yeah, Hori controllers, third-party controllers, at least from Hori, from my experience, really solid, really good, work super well. And you can always get one off of eBay, but do keep in mind, not all of them are going to be like good, perfect condition. You're going to have to, 1, do a lot of looking to make sure you find one that actually works, one that actually looks good, and then you're going to have to get a little bit lucky to find one that actually also feels like it works, instead of just looking like it works. So that is something you have to look out for. If you can feel the controller before you buy it, great. If you can't, which is 90% of the time, then I guess keep that in mind. Now, for more of the traditional fighting games. So after I moved on from Smash, I was like, I want to play more fighting games. So what else is there? One of the most popular fighting games is Dragon Ball FighterZ. So I got that on PC, and I said, okay, this should be fun. And for that, I did use the Pro Controller, also from Hori, the $20 Hori Pro Controller. and I've had it for like 2.5 years, and it works fine. I still use it today. It is a great controller, and I would definitely recommend that. If you have other preferences, then by all means. But yeah, so I started playing on just a normal pad, and that worked really well for me. Fighters plays great on a pad. It was designed for a pad, and it's really fun. It's ergonomic, and hitting all the buttons works. Never had a problem with it. Great. I moved to Skullgirls. 6-button fighter. Very different. The 4 face buttons are no longer the buttons you use to attack anymore. Well, they are, but there's 2 more buttons. The bumper and the trigger. And getting used to that was a little... it was a little bit of a effort. And it was really weird. I was like, man, maybe I do want to fight stick because it has all 6 buttons and I don't need to be pressing these weird ass triggers. And that issue came even more into play in Street Fighter. I really enjoy Street Fighter. I would still be playing Skullgirls and having this issue if anybody else on the planet played Skullgirls. But they don't, so let's talk about Street Fighter. Street Fighter, I had the same issue with the 6-button fighter, especially since at the same time I got into Street Fighter, I got into Mortal Kombat 11, which uses 4 buttons, and the trigger is for block. So getting used, like flipping between those 2 games on the same controller was quite awkward at times, but once you got used to it, you were pretty fine, right? At least that's where I'm at now. I can play both pretty comfortably and not like heavy kick when I'm trying to block in Street Fighter. But when I was having the growing pains of playing a 6-button fighter, which is Street Fighter, I realized, or thought to myself, okay, sure, let's try this stick thing. Let's try this arcade stick thing. So I bought an arcade stick off of Amazon. It was the 8-bit arcade dough. It was $90. It was $90, and it was a pretty solid arcade stick. Feel-wise, felt great. Don't really have much comparison to say it. It was heavy, it was good, it was a great arcade controller. If you want to get like a starter stick, I would do that one. Or at least from my experience, I liked it a lot, and from like a lot of reviewers that I watched, because I mean, obviously you watch reviews before you buy something, right guys? A lot of reviewers also said it was great for people who were buying their first stick. So I got that. And I played it, I liked it. It was really fun, like remastering the Dragon Punch and the Quarter Circle and training mode. And when I went in online, oh, the buttons. Oh, they were great. I never misinputted again. I pressed every single button right. However, moving my character, not the motion inputs, the quarter circles and DPs, those were pretty doable. But just moving my character and controlling it felt awful. I didn't like it at all. I didn't feel like I was like in full control of my character. So when I'm playing online, I was constantly fighting my controller instead of my opponent. So even though the buttons were just better for a 6-button fighter, the stick, I could use it. I just didn't like it as much. I wasn't as comfortable with it. I returned it. I didn't think it was comfortable. I like sitting weird, first of all, and that has to go in your lap. I'm a weird sitter, so that's the thing. And I started playing Street Fighter on pad again, felt so much better. And that's really what this is about. Your pick of controller is 100% subjective. And everybody says that. There's a really good Korea Gaming video about it, one of my favorite channels on YouTube. They do a lot of FGC content. But yeah, they had a good video on stick versus pad. And you see a lot of people talking about stick. You see a lot of people just loving arcade sticks. And people kind of like sleep on the pad. But truly, it's up to you. Whatever you prefer is what you're going to like the most. You should not force yourself to like a different control method, because you're not going to enjoy it for a very long time if that's the case. I just got an arcade stick because I thought they were cool, and I thought it would be more convenient to have 6 face buttons rather than having this strange kind of like muscle memory fighting of a 6-button fighter on pad. And honestly, at this point, I'm over it. I can swap between Dragon Ball FighterZ, Street Fighter, and Mortal Kombat, all very, very easily using the same one controller. It works for me. You just have to get used to it. It's practice. But if you've been using pad, it's easier just to keep using the pad and practice like that, rather than getting a brand new control method. So your choice in controls for fighting games are extremely, extremely subjective. Some people who use pad are like, the analog stick? You actually use the analog stick? That's disgusting. I use the D-pad. And some people are like, the D-pad? I only use the D-pad to taunt. What are you talking about? In Smash, that's all you use the D-pad for. It's like, oh god. So, you know, if you're on pad, some people use the analog stick, some people use the D-pad. It really doesn't matter. If you're on an arcade stick, some people use square gates, some people use circle gates. It really doesn't matter. Some people use ball tops, some people use bat tops on the stick. It doesn't matter. You just do what you like. And if you grew up with, like, if you grew up on PlayStation or Xbox, you're gonna like the PlayStation Xbox controllers more. People who like arcade sticks probably played a lot of arcade games when they were a kid. Now, I don't know, but if you're my age, if you're like 20, probably didn't go to too many arcades. They were kind of dying out at that point because home consoles were extremely accessible. Everyone had a PlayStation 2, everybody had a Wii, and then the whole PS3, Xbox 360 thing. At that point, I had a computer, and I was a PC gamer. And if you are a PC gamer, great, you can play Mortal Kombat on your keyboard. I don't like it, even though I played a lot of keyboard. I played all my fighting games on a controller, starting with Smash, into Dragon Ball FighterZ, Skullgirls, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. So, the keyboard's fine. I've practiced it a little bit. It's fine, I just don't personally prefer it. It's a little awkward at times. I don't want to put too much time into learning it, because it's just not as comfortable for me. But I play every other game that isn't a fighting game on keyboard. I will never play a first-person shooter on a controller. That's disgusting, that's vile. Okay? So that's where I'm at that. And if you are a PC player, if you're playing Mortal Kombat right now and you're thinking about getting a controller or an arcade stick, you might want to look at a Mixbox, which is like a hybrid of a arcade stick and a keyboard. I think that would be good for pretty much any fighting gamer, as long as you're more comfortable with it. They're very expensive though, and I think I would just stick to what you're more comfortable with. If you play Smash, you're going to be playing on a GameCube controller or on a Pro controller if you're a psychopath, and if you're moving to other fighting games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, Dragon Ball, Skullgirls, Guilty Gear, you're probably also going to want to use that Pro controller. And if you're using GameCube controller for Smash, you're probably going to be more comfortable with a Pro controller anyway than a stick, because they're so vastly different, you know? If you're using pad right now, and you're thinking about getting an arcade stick, unless you really think they're cool, and unless you really want to, like, basically go back to, like, 1 hour on the game, first time playing, relearn everything, you're probably not gonna like the arcade stick. And when you get it, you're not gonna like it for at least a month while you're still, like, learning, where you're still practicing, developing the muscle memory for all sorts of things, moving your character, your inputs, your buttons, all that sort of thing. So it's both a monetary investment, because those things are expensive, and a very big time investment. And that's kind of what turned me off, and I just decided to stick with pad. So let's say you're getting your first fighting game, your first ever fighting game, and it's not Smash. Which is weird, because a lot of people start with Smash. But let's say you're like, I want to play Street Fighter, or I want to play that new Guilty Gear coming out, Guilty Gear Strive. What should I get? Should I get a stick? Should I get a controller? If you're a keyboard and mouse gamer, could get either, honestly. If it's your first fighting game and you've been playing on keyboard and mouse, either works fine. If you play a lot of League of Legends, you might want to look into a reversed arcade stick, so you can sort of emulate you're pressing your buttons with your left hand, like your QWER in League, and you're moving your character with your mouse on your right hand or the stick on your right hand. Because the stick is on the left hand on most arcade sticks. It's very hard to find a reversed arcade stick, and I looked for one because I do play a lot of League, and I thought that would be cool. Couldn't find one. So you can look for that. You could get a mix box too, but that is a very big investment. I would really know if you wanted that or not. You could get a hit box, which is an all button thing. I feel like that would also be cool. But if you're just coming from keyboard and mouse only into fighting games, truly anything works. You can do anything. You can learn anything and you'll have the same experience as other things. Although, if you've used controllers before, you're probably going to prefer just getting a controller for your fighting game. And I mean, hell, if you grew up in arcades, playing arcades, or you had a friend who had an arcade stick and you use that a lot, you're going to prefer that. It just depends on what you have used more. If you've used controllers, if you've been like a PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 gamer for a while, and you went to PC and you're getting a fighting game, you're going to want to use a PlayStation controller, or just any controller in general. If you're... I guess you'd use an arcade stick on a console. If you've been playing fighting games, again, I don't think you should switch control schemes if you're like already playing fighting games, but if you've been playing PS4 or PS5 for however long and you want to get an arcade stick for a new fighting game you want to play, for the new Guilty Gear or something, I would stick to the controller you're already using, to be completely honest. Those sticks are fun, sticks are cool. You probably will have a very hard time, and it's a really big monetary and time investment, so watch out for that. But yeah, in conclusion, if you're playing Smash, GameCube controller all the way, unless you're a psychopath, do whatever you want. Though, if you're just picking up Smash brand new, get a GameCube controller, please, I implore you. If you're getting into fighting games right now, and you're a console gamer, use a controller. If you're getting into fighting games right now, and you're a PC player, probably also use a controller, that's what I did, but you can use whatever you want. You are much more open, because you'll have the same learning experience as anyone else. If you are playing fighting games currently, and you're using a controller, or you're using the keyboard, stick with what you have. I guess you can't. If you're trying to like play Street Fighter, you can't really play Street Fighter on a keyboard. I don't think it lets you. I'm sure you could if you had like a software or something. But might want to get a mix box, or a hitbox, or a controller. If you are a PC gamer, arcade sticks might mess with you a little bit because you're used to using the mouse in the right hand and now you're using a stick in your left hand. It's going to be a little bit of a nightmare, but do whatever you want. If you're in fighting games right now and you're using a controller, keep the controller, keep the pad. I highly implore you. If you're thinking about it, keep the pad. And if you're using a stick right now and you're thinking about trying pad, you are a 1%er and you should probably just keep using stick. So yeah, basically stick with what you have and do what you're comfortable with. Because you don't want to force yourself to do something you're uncomfortable with, because you're going to be spending a lot more of your time fighting your controller than fighting your opponent. And that's why I'm personally just going to stick with pad. Probably get a new controller at some point, like one of the Razer ones. I don't know, are those good? I'm not really sure. Or I just probably won't get a new controller, because this $20 Hori Switch Pro controller works fine. So yeah, I tried stick, didn't like it, returned it. I mean, I gave it a fair amount of practice too. It just wasn't as comfortable because I never grew up using arcade sticks. If you like pad, keep pad. Keep what you're comfortable with. And if you've only used the mouse and keyboard, controller will feel fine. Felt fine for me. But you probably are more open to learning new things because, again, you'll have the same learning experience pretty much either way. You're learning a new controller. So if you want to learn how to use pad, or if you want to learn how to use arcade, and you've literally only played mouse and keyboard before, you can do whatever you want. Though that's really rare. Alright, yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really have anything more else to add to that. Yeah. Just do what you're comfortable with. Do what makes you happy. And honestly, not to downplay sticks or anything. If you think sticks are really cool, and you're willing to put in the time, yeah, by all means. Do what makes you happy. That's the idea, right? No control scheme is going to give you a significant advantage. And no control scheme is going to make you better at the game. If you're swapping control schemes, you're probably going to be worse at the game, because you're not going to be used to it at first. Yeah, if you just think arcade sticks are really cool, and you're using a controller, you can completely ignore me and do it anyway if you actually think you're going to be able to, like, if the time and monetary investment is worth it to you, then sure, by all means. But it isn't for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to relearn a game they already know for like a couple months, trying to get used to a new thing, trying to get used to a new control scheme. A lot of people don't want to spend like $100, $200, $300 on a control scheme that will also require a large time investment like that. But if you are one of the people who think both of those things are fine, you won't have any problem with it, get a stick. Sure, why not? If you're not, just stick with pad. It really does not matter. I tried stick, and I didn't want to put in all that time and monetary investment. Maybe I will in the future, when I'm just super liquid and don't really care about the money I drop, or what I'm doing, or how I spend my time. Sure, maybe. But for now, I think pad's just more comfortable and fits me better. And I have pretty small hands, so reaching the buttons was sometime, or not reaching the buttons was fine, but resting your hands on the thing was a little weird at first. Because to spread out your fingers to keep them on 3 buttons, don't do it. And I felt like I was using it wrong because I was not resting my fingers on the buttons because they're too far out for my tiny little baby hands. Anyway, yeah. Do whatever you want. I know that's probably not helpful. No, I think this is helpful. Don't do whatever you want. Listen to my advice. Listen to all that, like, conclusion. Stick with what you have unless you really, really want to change. Unless you super duper want to change and you're willing to go through so many hurdles to do it. Stick with what you have. Okay, that's it for real. This time I have nothing more to add. Alright. Time to